Good morning, folks. So the folks can't hear us online unless we're in mic. So it's not for these folks. It's for the mystical spirits in the sky who are watching us.
For the other presents.
Indeed, for the other presents.
Yes. Hello, hello.
But welcome to the Artist in Focus Masterclass for the 2023 Mimesis Documentary Festival, a conversation with Jessica Beshir. To dance with reality, we're going to focus on cinematography today a bit. And I think we're going to start by getting in the mood, watching a short film of Jessica's first, and then we'll move into the conversation phase. Is there anything you want to say other than welcome?
No, well, thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to see you all and to recognize all the faces, a lot of the faces. So yeah, so I'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, folks. So I know everyone has. Yes, I know everyone has a lot of questions to ask Jessica, but I thought maybe we could maybe start the conversation apart from both films and talk about our relationships, maybe first to cinema and to a camera in particular, as a way of starting it off, and maybe as a way of maybe encouraging other folks to also share in this conversation. Um, I'll just very, very briefly go first as a little icebreaker, right? Um, I got my first camera from my dad. Uh, we used to wait for him to come home from work because he would be coming home with the money so that we could get dinner, right? So we'd be sitting there, it was always a moment of anticipation. He's coming home. He's going to have some cash. We're going to get to eat. It's going to be great. And one day he came home with no money, but with this old Yashica 35 millimeter camera that he had got. He was always looking for a deal, so he got it in trade for the work that he had done that day. Probably because the guy couldn't pay him and it was just looking for some way to, to make it up to him. He had nothing to do with the camera, so he gave it to me, right? And so my relationship with the camera has always been grounded in work, right? In a relationship with my father. I mean, we fixed up a car together later on in life and we sold it. And then I bought my first camera for real, like work. And, the camera that I made money off of and the one that I used to pay rent and things like that. So it's always been grounded in that for me. And I wonder what your kind of initial introduction to this, amazing device was and what your relationship to it is kind of founded upon.
Well, that's a great story, but um, I don't know. I don't have that kind of far away memory, but you know, after I left Ethiopia, and for the first time when I was going to go back, the first thing I did was get a mini DV, one of those, because I wanted to record my grandmother. My grandmother was getting very old. We haven't seen her for a long time. We've been exiled for so long. And my father was still not able to go back. So to me, I thought I'm going to record her and bring that news to my father, So that was the first time that I found myself using like this video camera. And that was very emotional because, to me, this device was going to take, I saw it as it was going to capture all those years that we lost with my grandmother, and I was going to be able to offer it to my father, these memories. So that's how, it started. And that's how it continued, truthfully, because, when I started filming my grandmother, that's when I started looking outside and trying to understand what was happening, and how to, and the time that transpired between the time that I was here and now that I'm back. And so it always was related to memory in that sense. And not just like capturing for the future, but trying to even understand the past memories, that I didn't even have. So yeah, that was
I mean, it feels like in so many. So, of course, you do have a beautiful story about your relationship, and I believe probably everyone here who is a filmmaker has that same kind of feeling. Like it's grounded probably in a familial relationship or someone very close to you. Like these, the way that we enter into this kind of art form, I think, is while the tools are, they're shiny and they're fun and they're, extremely compelling in what they can do. They're usually grounded in some kind of relationship, which I think your cinematography really articulates. But you talk about memory a lot. Last night you talked about memory a lot as well, and your memory of when you did live in Ethiopia. But in a lot of ways, it feels like you're investigating memories that you never got to have, memories that you missed or that you could have had if you had stayed, almost reconstructing the gap, right, in your investigation of the present. And that,
Yes, because the thing is, as I started, shooting for this film, for Faya Dayi, like I said, it was not only just looking at all of these new scenarios, new spaces that I hadn't been to, but it's also revisiting these spaces that I know, that I have known for so long. And because everywhere, these were triggering all kinds of memories, so yeah, it was a capturing of that, memories triggering other memories. It was just, so yeah.
so maybe you could give us a little just background on the film we just watched, Hairat, and how that came about. You know, were you, were you using it as a sort of way of exploring your own camera work, your own style, in order to make the feature? Like, did you feel like it was part of a trajectory, like part of a process? Are these connected, these projects, in some way? Or was it a completely separate project that you did in a completely different manner from Faya Dayi?
This was definitely part of Faya Dayi. This was part of Faya Dayi. It wasn't a test, to see if a certain cinematography works or not. As a matter of fact, this short film, as simple as it is, it truly encapsulates a lot of the things that I believe and that I understand, about cinema, and about making art altogether. I want to tell you a story that, the night that I went to film this, I had already been that time when I went to Ethiopia to film. I didn't go specifically to film this, but so I had altogether 10 days. And as soon as I got there, I got sick. Sometimes you get water and all of that. And so for 7 days, I was in the hospital. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, my God, I'm not going to have time. I'm not going to shoot anything. I'm just my time to go back is coming. But then by the 7th day, finally I got discharged, and somehow I got the energy to just get up and get my camera and walk around. At that point, I only had 3 more days. I didn't know what I was going to shoot. I had, I was hoping to shoot Abba Yusuf, whom I've known forever. I grew up, watching him do the same thing. So I was just walking with my camera, and then in that walled city, when it was noon, it was the midday, sun was like right on top of you, and I wasn't feeling that great. I think I had fever or something. And so I saw this huge tree, and it had this really nice shade. So I just went there and I sat under that tree. And then this man, all dressed in white, he was an imam, he comes to me and he asked me, so what are you doing? And I thought, oh, maybe I trespassed maybe somebody's garden. I don't know. So I told him, oh, I'm sorry. Am I okay? I just, I'm under the tree because I'm not feeling very well. And I don't know. And he said, no, I asked you, what are you doing? And I thought, okay, I told him, well, I'm here. I wanted to shoot, but then I got sick and, and whatever. And he just cut me out a little bit. He's like, I don't know. Yeah, you're not understanding, but it's fine. I don't have time for your conversation, but you're complaining too much. Don't you understand that? This is happening for you. There's so many amazing things that are coming your way, and you're just not seeing it, and you're wasting your time, and you're wasting my time by complaining, about the thing. And I'm like, okay. So he's just getting very, but he was speaking very straightforwardly. And he's like, even me, I don't have any business, talking to you right now, but you should thank the creator because I'm giving you the message, And so, and by the way, whatever it is that you came to do right now, don't waste the time. If you said that you wanted to go and shoot Abba Yusuf tonight, well, just go and do it, and keep your eyes and your ears and all your senses open, because you're in conversation with your creator. So keep everything open and listen what it's telling you. You're gonna have a lot of messages. I was like, oh, okay. But something, I took him very seriously. He was so earnest, and he also was in a hurry. Like, yeah, I just have to deliver this message, but I gotta go. It's like, oh, let me finish it, and then he left. And so, and I kind of like obeyed. I went back to my hotel, just rested a little bit, got it ready, and that night I came back again with my camera and my tripod, and I was walking towards Abba Yusuf when um, this young man, I think he's probably 19, he comes to me, he's like, what are you doing, as I'm walking, and so I told him, I'm gonna go and shoot Abba Yusuf and stuff, and he said, oh, well, I have to tell you that I'm a poet. And I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. And he started telling me that he had just gotten his first major breakup of his life, and that he was feeling so much. And so I asked him if he wanted to recite his poem, as we were walking, and he said sure. And then right away he started reciting. I didn't understand because the language is Harari. I don't speak Harari. I didn't understand the language, but something about the way he was saying it and whatever it is that it was, it just truly got to me. It just got under my skin. And so, and I had just been told that I was going to be getting a lot of messages and to listen. And I thought, okay, do you mind if we record? Record. He said, yeah, sure. Where? I said, like right here. And so we just sat there, and I had my sound recorder, and we recorded his poem, and he also did another one. And he said, tomorrow I'll send you the translation. I'll write you the translation. So that's it. And that day I just went and I shot the Abba Yusuf. But when I went there, you see, I was also in this state of mind. I was in this state of mind. I was in the state of mind of this poem that I didn't understand, but that moved me. I was thinking about a lot about. I was also feeling very alone, and I was just questioning everything, because by then I had been shooting for years, and I was, like I was in a utter doubt about the project, about me. I'm like, what do I think? Am I doing? Um, am I even doing anything? I'm just lying to myself, like, why am I lying to myself every day? Or, just all of the doubtful conversations that invade you when you are making any work of art, or at least when you're making something that is very your own, and you're choosing your own path. Um, and so, to me, when when I see Abba Yusuf walking alone in the middle of the night to meet those hyenas, it's not just him meeting hyenas. Yes, concretely, manifestly, physically, in the presence, that's what we see. But to me, it talked to me about so many other things. Nobody's telling this guy that he has to do this. He's been doing it for years, and he doesn't really care what anybody thinks in any case. He goes there and he feeds these hyenas because it gives him something, God knows what. And I was just thinking, maybe that's what I'm doing. God knows why I have to be carrying all of this heavy stuff and walk in all of these lands, just by myself, like a crazy person. But I don't know, I have to. And so, to me, when I went to film this, that is what it was giving me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was responding to that. Because when you are filming something, it's your response to the world, your response to what you're being given. That was my response, because that's what it was giving me, in a way of healing me and saying it's okay. I go into the middle of nowhere every night and I feed hyenas off of a stick. I get all the joy in the world. It's my meditation. That's my thing. And people are thinking that I'm crazy and all kinds of nonsense, but I don't care, because that's where I see, I experience a certain kind of love that I don't experience anywhere. I experience a certain kind of obliteration of fear amidst huge presence of these very predatory animals, that somehow have created a place where we coexist in peace, where I get to know them and they know me. And this is supposed to be a danger place, and I've turned it around. So,
Yeah, you're going exactly where I was hoping that we would go, because
oh yeah,
my next question was going to be about how it seems impossible not to think about you as a filmmaker when you're watching Abu Yusuf with the hyena, as if the hyena is his subject, right? And that there is this kind of little choreography, this little dance that happens where you offer something and then they come close, but then maybe they snap at you and you have to come away a bit because maybe you went too fast. And this navigation of a relationship that's happening all the time seems to be a reflection of the navigation of the relationship between filmmaker and subject, which comes with some risk. Like there is risk, right? I'm trying not to get too academic, but Hara Kazuo, who talks about the 1 meter rule. He was an action documentarian in Japan, and he talks about this 1 meter rule as you cannot have an authentic experience with your subject unless you're close enough that they can hit you, right? That there is some risk involved in the way that you position yourself. So if you're within 1 meter, then all of a sudden you're at risk. And it creates a new kind of relationship that brings with it a certain kind of authenticity. And I wonder if that's something that you think about when you position yourself, your body with a camera in the world.
Oh, that's a wonderful image. I think so. I think again, like this film, what it made me understand, in other ways, is that um, you if the dance that you have with your fear, and the fear is going to show up all the time, and so is doubt, and so is shame, and so is everything. All of these are, the guests that show up every day when you're trying to make something. Uncertainty. um but that it was about truly embracing these, and understanding that more than anything, these are teachers. These are teachers. And so, again, for me, making Hairat was a bit of a healing, in terms of understanding that, yeah, I'm maybe, years into making this. So imagine if you're going to go with no funding for like 8 years, because it was not until end of 2018 that I got my first grant. With no funding, for 8 years, there's got to be some sort of self-talk that you have to do all the time, every single day, because the doubt is real. There's no one that is telling you anything. You're the only one telling yourself that this is worth your life. So that's why, for me, I say that, for me personally, um, even the process of learning something about the cinematography and all of it, it has to do a lot with that inner world and that personal of how do you deal with these demons every day, because you have to. It's not like they go away. Your relationship to them changes, over time. There's no escaping it, um, especially when you find yourself, I mean, because I was finding myself economically in a very precarious place, and those are the forces that kind of like make you, try to reevaluate 500 times of what this is. So Hairat, I took it and we cut this very short as a response to these doubts, and not just doubts, because I was like, I need to somehow be able to help myself and try to get some grants for this editing, because I know that I'm never going to afford it. I may have been able to somehow put every single thing I had into these trips or into the gear or into all of that. But when it comes to editing, it's not going to happen. So I thought, let me cut one tiny piece from this. And specifically, I came up, with Hairat and thinking about all of those concepts and what it represented to me. By the time I came to the editor, I knew exactly how this thing was going to go. So yeah, I made the short and just put it out in the world, but most importantly, I needed something to say if I ever, because I was still thinking about hiring a producer so that we could get grants and we can hire a cinematographer and so on. So that was the the talk. And so
I'm so glad that you didn't.
I mean, I'm very glad that I didn't too at at some point, because what it not having that did for me was that it set me on a journey of learning. Why? Because then I understood, okay, so if it's going to be just me, then I need to know everything. I need to know everything, and that's what my life is going to be spent. 247. I'm going to be learning, and I continue to learn, and I love to be that person that is always learning. About everything. Cinematography was cinema. Light, shadow, this, that, and what most importantly, what it signifies to me, what it's talking to me about, what are the secrets that it's um, telling me, about life. So yeah, and once this short film came out, I finally had a little something to show and be able to say, look, this is more or less, how I'm thinking about cinema, and I have a longer version of this that I want to make, and it did help me, because I got introduced to some editors that wanted to work with me based on this. We were able to cut a 28-minute piece of the Faya Dayi that got us some grants to be able to continue the editing on it.
Yeah, I'm struck always by how close you seem to be to people. The shot of him walking, right, in this tight close up, of it, and so you must be walking backwards at the same time, holding the camera when he's walking towards you in the beginning, and so you're in front of him, like you're in his way in some sense, right? You're not hiding off to the side documenting from a distance. You're in the action itself as a camera operator, and that's something that I'm constantly thinking of when see, like, how has she managed to have this such close, intimate relationship with someone who also acts so well behaved as a subject, right? Because if I just start to jump in front of somebody right now with a camera and try to follow them walking, right, they're gonna look into the camera lens, they're gonna look at me, they're gonna move, they're gonna stop. But there's this fluidity with which you navigate space around people, and I guess your philosophy towards camera work is what I'm really like. And maybe even on a technical level, like, are there preferences that you have? Like, are you someone who's always holding the camera in your hand, or are you a tripod user? Like, are there ways that you prepare yourself so that when something happens and unfolds in real time, you're ready to kind of articulate it in your style and with your sensibility?
You know, when I started shooting and going to the farms, to me, the landscape was just so, um, the presence of that landscape needed nothing but hopefully me being able to focus or, you know what I mean? Do the minimal, for it to come through. All I needed to do was just put the camera there and allow that presence of that place, come in. That's the way I was thinking. I mean, like, for the most part, I was on my tripod when I was shooting in the factory, for example. Again, I really felt that, here is the world, here is the reality, or all I need to do is just be quiet in a place and allow this to happen, because I never wanted to be gimmicky. Oh, look at how, I'm good at this or I'm that, or, because I'm not, it was never even part of it. For me, I was always, my prayer every day, before I go filming somewhere is just allow me to be quiet. Allow me to be quiet, inside. That's, what I was always praying for, so that I'm able to receive, to receive, and again to and to dance as well. Because see what happened, for the most part I was on tripod, but I also had a very lightweight stabilizer, that I needed because, like when I'm shooting at nighttime at those markets and a lot of the farms, and when it comes to following, the harvesters and all of that stuff, I needed to be mobile, and I needed something very lightweight. I realized that, like something that Werner Herzog says that I love. There are two things that stay in my mind all the time. And one is that you got to walk. You got to walk, to find. And that I did. And I really loved it. And two, he talks about ecstatic truth as opposed to being fly on the wall. And that's something that really resonated with me, because I never felt like I was a fly on the wall. I always felt like I was having a communion, with whoever I was in front of, or whoever I was filming. There was, and it's not like they were performing for me or anything, but more importantly, the gift was that they were trusting me, and trusting me to the point where I allow you, I know you're there, but I'll allow my presence fully to you because I trust you. And that is as simple as that. No need of anything else. And so I think that getting close to people was precisely that. It was that trust that we had, and you can feel it when you're filming someone. You can feel when they are uneasy because they start doing things that normally they wouldn't, just even a tick or, a movement or anything. You feel it. And when they're just completely trusting, you also feel it's like when someone sleeps in your presence. It feels like it means that they trust you, you know? So it's the same. I felt very much that way. And also, there is this thing, it's called quote unquote. Quote unquote is like a call and response, as it exists in song and every form of art. I think the cinematography is also that call and response. You know, you, I am responding to you, and I'm also responding to what I see. That is my response. And it's not necessarily, oh, here is the reality of Eric.
Right.
No, it is how I see Eric. It is how I see Muhammad, how I see Ibrahim, how I see, based on the time that we had together, based on whatever it is that is happening in the world. But here we are, right here and now. And to me, every single moment was never like a B-roll. Every single moment was about the entire universe in this moment. It's right here and right now. And that is something also that I learned a lot from the Sufis, that I spent a lot of time, learning from. A lot of these things, resonate so much in cinema. Not just about being spiritual or just some sort of like weird, mystical, I don't know what, but it just in a very concrete way. They talk about, try to empty yourself so that you can really, truly see. That to me is just the basis of everything, because in their prayers that allow me to empty myself from all of these veils and shadows, so I can truly see the magnificence of your creation. That's what it is. And I think the way you see has everything to do with your inner life, and how much you allow all of the noise interfere in the way you see or not. So I feel that, for example, I met at one point somebody told me, oh, there's a journalist, from New York, and she's actually doing something about chat, and we gave her your number in Hairat. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm happy to help whichever way. And so she contacted me, and we went out for a tea, and very quickly, she told me how she was there to teach people not to use chat.
Right.
And to me, it was a shocking. It was a complete shock. But it didn't surprise me, because it's a lot of the attitude, the Western attitude, when we go to places like Africa. It's like, what are you teaching? What are you talking? I grew up here. I'm here learning. I've been learning for I don't know how many years now. Like, how are you coming to teach? What do you know? What do you know?
I mean, yeah, cinematography as a process of learning, I think, is just such a fabulous idea, rather than this didactic way of coming in and telling, right? But being like radically open, radically receptive to the world, like through the lens of a camera, rather than trying to construct a world with it, is something that I really, really feel, in all of your work. And that's something that is obviously notable, right? That you don't pass judgment on the use of chat, right? You don't pass judgment really on anything.
Who am I?
Well,
I mean, and judgment for what? I mean, if anything, we're human. This is everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, everywhere where there is a human being, we're medicating for one thing or another. We need to medicate human beings. That's what we do. And
Sometimes we go to master classes.
you know what I mean? This is to medicine. But the thing is, so that's precisely what it's about. And in this part of the world, given these circumstances, this is how we medicate.
We were talking earlier before this started. I was asking about the shot of the two boys in the water in Faya Dayi last night, and there's these two boys who don't seem to be actors in any way, right? It's a kind of a chaotic relationship they seem to have. The camera is there, framed on this, body of water that has no human figure in it at first, and they come in and they land somehow wrestling perfectly at the intersection of the thirds, right? The camera never moves to reframe them or adjusts for their location. They simply end up where they're supposed to be in some way. And I wonder if you could talk about how it I guess you've already said it really with Hairat as well. Like Hairat becomes like the result of you being just almost distracted by a nice tree. And if you hadn't encountered that tree and the light coming through the leaves in that way, then maybe the imam never comes and tells you have to stop complaining. Then maybe you never go and film that. Like this kind of allowing the world to almost distract you or tell you, hey, don't just go to your destination and, think of your schedule. And, we're all making strip boards and making sure, we got to go and shoot this. And we have to make sure we have to gather that piece of material or this piece of material, our spreadsheets and everything. But it seems like it's almost the deviation from that allows your work to come into existence.
Precisely. I want to tell you another story. When I first, started shooting, again, I didn't have too much time. Every time I went, I had a few weeks, 3 weeks, and then a year would go by before I could do that again. So at the beginning, I was just shooting some interviews, just listening. And then as time went by, I started to get a little bit more anxious because, if somebody had told me this is going to be a 10-year process, I don't know. I never thought in my life this was going to be that, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I was not thinking this. But in any case, so I started to become, again, responding to those fears and doubts and all of that, a little bit more impatient. Like every time I got there, okay, I would just touch base with my imams and this and that. I'm like, okay, Chubb, very much with that New York, let's get it done kind of situation. But I was very lucky because the imam sat me down and a little bit of an intervention. So they told me, this is not going to work. Whatever it is that you're doing, it's not going to work because it looks to us that you're being very stressed and you're stressed about time and you want things at your own time. And we want to tell you, we want to let you know that here in this area, this place has its own time and it's not your time. And so you're clashing. And while you're hurrying and being impatient, you're standing to lose everything that is being offered to you. You're going to lose everything because you don't have time to see. And so what we suggest is that every time you come, you leave your notion of time at the door, and then you enter this place and allow the flow to take you, because there is a such thing as a flow, Yeah, it's and I was just thinking at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, it's so easy for you to say when I only have 2 more days to go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Sit and wait for the flow. Okay, now you know what I mean. I'm gonna finish this film in 30 years. Right. Okay, that's
but also how
happen.
Miserable for a documentary to just be the imposition of a schedule on a subject.
You know what I mean?
Right. Like if that's what we're doing, then maybe we put the camera down
Exactly. So that was one of the first things that I truly grasped and learned, through them. That's why I say that, most of the things that I learned about cinema, I learned it through my Imam brothers and sisters and elders and fathers, um, because they were so right. Because it was not only that, it was the whole notion of control. You want to control what's going to happen. You want to because of so much uncertainty, you want to feel like you want to hold on to something and feel like you have control, and that certainly is not true. And so I mean, because you don't have any control over things, and it's just like it's just a mental situation. So learning to let go of that, let go of any outcome, let go of any attachment to any outcome, those things were part of this process. And to me, I want to say that in cinematography, as in making a film, what truly served me so much was to letting go of any kind of notion of control or attachment to what kind of film this is going to be, or this or that. um, and so my movements mostly became about liberating, liberating, liberating. And as I was saying yesterday, not just liberating myself from outcome, because it's not like I had a producer saying, oh, you need this film. That's what I was afraid of, actually, because I'm like, my gosh, I don't have any pressure from anyone, so I could be doing this for the next 30 years, and oh my god, seriously. But what was I going to say? The 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 whole the whole notion of liberation, it just went through, all across the board. Any liberation of the image, like liberate myself of any kind of attachment to some sort of like narrative, linear necessity to make yourself understood. And all of these things, there's like 1,000 things. Or liberating my image from any kind of signification, that or codification, conventional codification altogether. It's like, why? I don't see it like that. For me, this means this. And so to come to those places and to be able to um, have that faith, radical faith in myself, because that's what I needed, in order to continue and to move forward and to assume responsibility for this project. Um, what I trust more is the process, because the process is what got me there in the first place. There is no shortcuts. Or at least if you're interested in a more I don't know, holistic experience, but yeah, these were some of the things that taught me a lot about time, about letting go of any expectations, and about being able to get into that flow where all of these gifts happen, such as the shot that you're talking about. I was not even supposed to be in that lake. I was going to Drira. I just passed by that day, and it was so beautiful outside. I'm like, oh, to the driver, I'll come and let's stop high, for a minute. Took up my camera. I was just, and my camera was there, and then these boys come, and they were like, they were asking me, so what are you doing? And I was showing them, oh, look, I'm shooting this thing. Um, and one of them was like, oh, I'm the best swimmer in this place. And the other one is like, no, come on, it's just me. And they're like, oh yeah, like, watch me. And then they take out their clothes and they start running, and the camera is on. No, that to me is a gift. Such and as such, the film is full of those moments that I'm not creating. I'm just simply um, doing my best to be present to receive these. That was it. Mostly to be present and aware and receive all of these things. That all of these bounties of of the creator that had nothing to do with me.
I'm sorry, I'm dominating the conversation. I have a million more questions, but there's one more thing that I just want before we really open this up that I wanted to ask. And I did hear a rumor that you fell out of a tree a couple of times, and and I so I just wanted to ground it, in this embodied experience because, when we talk about it abstractly, it's like being receptive and being open and like all obviously very true, obviously very beautiful. I think learning moments or teaching moments, like for all of us to remember that, in a lot of ways, that's what we're doing here. And this kind of constructive approach that sometimes we have might be holding us back in some way from seeing what might be there if we were only paying attention. But it's also very like you have to be there. Your actual body has to go somewhere and move through the world, and you have to take these kinds of risks, and you have to decide to climb a tree to get, an overhead shot of two brothers having an intimate moment. So I wonder if you could just tell us that little story and maybe talk about what drives you to make these kinds of decisions. You're not just being comfortable.
You know what? I want to say nothing about making this film was ever about being comfortable. And it just never even entered my mind. Like what is that about? That was never a consideration. Comfort was never a consideration. But what was, again, was to be present, right? To recognize. So what happened that day was Muhammad and Ibrahim, they were harvesting the jats, and the uncle, as I heard afterwards, because I don't understand what they were saying, he's literally trying to dissuade Ibrahim from ever trying to go back again, to go back, abroad, and telling him, what he can do with his money instead, right? And then afterwards, they were going to take a break. So I said, okay, where are you going to be resting? And they're like, oh, here's our place. So there is a little place that is covered with a lot of vegetation, because, and they put the mat on the floor, and it's kind of like tilted a little bit. And I can understand why that's a resting place, because it's already kind of like a little bit of a tilted bed, And so they get there, and Ibrahim that day, he had like a, the teenager, he had a zit, on the side. And so when I see them, just getting ready, already Ibrahim was doing like this, kind of like, I think he was covering, he's trying to cover, his his face, because he knows he's, anyways. So I see him covering, and then before I know it, Muhammad comes. They were eating some corn. Muhammad comes, and then finally, gets like ready, and he's doing the same thing. So I am seeing them, laying on this mat, and of course, right in front of him, there is a tree that's creating all the shadows. So in order to truly get a shot like that, I would have had to go on the tree. So kind of weird, because I did get on the tree, and I was trying to hold on to the camera, because the tripod would not do. And of course, I can only hold it so much. I fell the first time because I was thinking about the camera. I was not thinking about my body, And then I got on the thing again, and I felt the second time. Finally, we figured out the right place to be at. But again, I think, you see, I was not even thinking about any kind of discomfort or anything. Why? Because when you are in that place, and you're understanding the gifts and the possibilities and all of that, all you want to do, I'm at a point, I'm not even thinking, it's just you start moving, by osmosis. I'm just facilitating and making sure, again, that this camera is in focus, perhaps, or like the shutter speed is all right, or like things like that. And that's it. And to just be quiet and get out of the way and allow this to enter the camera, as opposed to me kind of tinkering with life and reality and all the beauty that I'm being given. I don't need to go there. I just need to be quiet. So most of the time, what I found myself doing was precisely that. How can I be, quiet in a place? Or even when I'm holding the stabilizer, and I'm shooting the harvesters, it's precisely about that, because there is a lot of action, going on. Everybody's doing their job, and I'm walking around trying to understand what each framing is going to give me. If I sit here, this is what I'm going to get. If I sit there, that's what I'm going to get. I don't want to cut this in 500 pieces to show everything, because I don't care about that. I want to be in that one place that crystallizes to me what is happening in this place. To me, that shot where there is the man who's doing, who's skinning the chat, and he from the waist up, he doesn't have a shirt,
Right.
and he's doing that with the background. There's another worker, and the other background is the chat that, because of the sun, is flickering. To me, that shot is basically tells me everything. There's a chat in the background, it's flickering. It's almost like dreamy. It's like the dream factory already. And here is the worker, the presence, the know-how, the speed with which this chat needs to be delivered, because this is a 24-hour thing. It needs to be delivered ASAP. Why? Because once you cut it, the life and the value of it starts going down by the second. After the third day, you're not going to be able to sell that, and it's expensive. So to me, that shot was showing me everything. It was showing me the presence, dexterity, know-how, and it was showing me the speed. It was showing me what this industry is about. So yes, I was moving, and I was trying to find. I'm trying to see what I'm responding to.
I mean, I could keep going, but I'm really gonna stop now and let you guys have a say. Are there mics floating around? Just so those folks online can hear us.
Oh.
So, some, I think, really lovely ideas here about cinematography and how we, move through the world with a camera. And feel free to bring your own experience into this as well, right? In your own filmmaking practice, in terms of what we might want to talk about. I mean, what you just described as sort of, we always think of these technologies as maybe just being there to extend us. But, you saying well, I'm saving the camera before my body, maybe in some way we are also extending them, right? Our bodies it's a coextensive relationship with our tools, right? Where it's this back and forth, it's this give and take. It's like with the hyena, and the meat on the stick, right? There's this always back and forth happening. Yeah. Torsten, you have something.
I have a simple technical question.
The microphone was here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you want to say something? Sorry, wasn't clear.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing the work. There's something that I've been thinking about since yesterday, that I think is interesting to address today, which is maybe more of a comment than a question. But there was this question about softness, which I think was not about softness, which was about veiledness and opaqueness. That I think you do in such a beautiful way. That makes me think about this economy of images, right? That we're often thinking about evaluating images in a certain way, and they have to do a certain thing. Where you're doing something else with your images, you're presenting us with a different currency, I think, which I think is well, which I think is really important, because I think we get very caught up in shooting ratio and percentages and all these things. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit to this use of opaqueness. I would also sort of maybe make a little bit of a leap here and say that I think that the opaqueness that you're using, and maybe the opaqueness that many of us are trying to get to, is very important at this very moment, because it is a push against this idea of transparency, which was part of a conversation yesterday. And whose transparency and who are we speaking for? So I guess, could you speak a little bit about opaqueness and how you're using that and also what's your favorite camera and how do you shoot with it?
Thank you for the question. Well, I think Glissant wrote a lot about opacity. To me, and I really love reading what he has to say about that. But to me, I don't know anything about the discussion about transparency or anything. But for me, cinema has never been about that. As a matter of fact, it's just completely the opposite. Life, if we're talking about that, life is never a linear story with a bow tie at the end. It's just never happens that way. It's the way that we have adopted to kind of relate to each other or tell each other stories, but life is never, even me, in my experience, life has never been a linear. My life has been a series of fragmentations, whether it is being born here, then going there, then having to run away from here and then run away from there. And I think that that's true today for even more people that are existing in these spaces that where you can ask yourself, do I belong here, or what is this thing about? So opacity, for me, it's simply the fact that the mystery of life. I believe so much that specifically in cinema, it's about what you don't show. It's not about showing everything or making you understand anything. I have nothing to make anybody understand or anything, and I'm not interested in that. It's about what you don't show and what it provokes in you through what you show. That's in your editing. So not only in that, but just even in the image. A lot of my images are a bit sculpted in a way, with whatever available light I was able to find, and however it is that I thought of framing all of the people that I filmed or the spaces that I filmed, because life is that way. Because nothing to me has absolute clarity, and in darkness you can even see more because you pay more attention. So when it comes to opacity, that's what I would have to say: opacity of the image, and even in the storytelling, let's just say.
Mhm.
What is that storytelling? It's not even anymore about linearity, not linearity. It's about um, time and the succession of these images in time, and a cumulative effect and what that is creating. So yeah, that's what I can say about the opacity of my image. And it was never, I think, a lot of my images, they do hold a lot of secrets. They do hold their shadows, uh, and I feel like that reflects life a lot more than uh, than any clarity in an image or transparency can make. It's never even about reality. What is reality? I mean, we've had this conversation. This has been talked about, to the death. There's no objectivity in this world. Period. It doesn't exist. The moment I'm putting my tripod somewhere, I'm being radically subjective. So if we're not talking about that, then what is it that we're talking about? Yeah.
Thanks, Lauritz.
I have to see it. I was taken away by your explanation. So I had the question, or I was wondering if you ever direct the people you film with. Do you tell them what to do in any way?
No. No. I feel that it would defeat the whole purpose. I feel, specifically when I'm talking about being able to find, these gifts, that people are giving you. I can even think of saying to one of those workers of chat and the harvesters to say, "Oh, can you move over there so that like I can get the light?" I mean, it's just doesn't make sense. These people are in their world, inside their world. I would be interrupting that in order to get something that is going to kill the shot in the first place, because this person is going to be so self-conscious, this is going to start like thinking about this when he was not even thinking about it a second ago. And he was giving me that complete trust. That his presence, his breath, he was giving me that. So no, I wasn't, trying to tell anybody what to do. I was trying to see what people are doing and how to work around them. For example, there is this woman that is knitting, and singing. So we were just hanging out at her place, and when she started doing that, I have my camera next to me. I'm waiting for Muhammad to go elsewhere, but since she's singing and she's doing this, and I'm there, and I'm moved by it, I just took out the camera and put it right here on my knee, and I started shooting. But so since she was on it, for example, and she was actually singing another song, and I asked her, "Oh, do you know this song? There's another song that I love that Hakim Zamusio Malaya, that the doctor has no remedy for love, and I don't know what. It's a very, very well known song from that stayed with me from way back when, So I asked her, "So do you know Hakim Zamusio?" She's like, "Yeah." And right away she continued knitting, and then she starts singing Hakim Zamusio, things like that, for example.
Yeah.
I'm telling her what to do, but I'm not telling her what to do. So I think it's certain, you create provocations for a certain response. And there are other instances. For example, when Muhammad is talking to his friends. I mean, he's telling them about finding a boat and all of that stuff. That's straight out reenactment. That one, for example, is straight out. Like how, because him and his friends, they were telling me how they were able to go away, and then they got caught, and the father brought him back. And they were telling me that they were under in Magalagudu, in that space, and so, and they were very mad at Muhammad because he's the one who convinced everyone to go, and it didn't work out, as you can see in the film, right? And so I asked them, so do you remember how he was doing? Because they were saying it, no, you told us this, like how, that he was a sheikha, that nothing was going to happen to us, and this and that. So I asked them, do you guys think that you can do it? Do you remember what you did? Yeah. And so we went to Magalagudu. I mic'd them, and that's it. That's what they did. But for them, it was it's a raw memory. So yeah. So that one is yeah. So that one is a reenactment, but I think that I was more interested, as opposed to creating a reality. I wanted to act like a space where I could just receive that reality, and the accumulation of it, trusting the process, that the accumulation of these communions that I've had were going to lead into something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes a narrative device. And I think what you did so wonderfully is basically finding the narrative while you were shooting the film, and not the other way around.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no.
You were not looking for the images to fulfill a narrative that you had in mind, but it was the other way around. You found the narrative there, and that's I think about the film as like this circular structures that touch each other, and there is like all this. There is labor, there are these economics, there are the personal stories, there are like there's this very intimate space, and it's all connected, obviously.
Yeah, to me, all of these shots, all of these images, all of these stories are in conversation with each other, completely. There is something very cyclical about the harvesting of chat, as it is. This is something that happens every single day. The whole chat process that you saw in the film is what happens in 24 hours, right? So yeah, the cyclicality is very real to me. And I definitely wanted that to be reflected in the form of the film.
Jessica, thank you for sharing your beautiful work with us. It's quite compelling and inspiring. You also mentioned last night that you have a daughter. I'm guessing that's Maya, because both films are dedicated to Maya. And so I'm wondering, to what extent do you infuse parenthood into your aesthetics, your style, your psychology of making films? And then also, obviously, themes of parenthood come through very clearly in the narrative, with Muhammad and his mother and yearning to reconnect, and the imams are like father figures, right? So I'm curious if you could fill that in a little more, and just talk a little bit about how parenthood informs your practice.
Wow. Well, thank you for your question. 100%. I am a mom. I'm a mom first and filmmaker second. I say that in all earnestness because what got me close, very close to Muhammad is well the fact that I'm a mother, and the fact that he was missing his own mother. And there was a realization of that. That's what got him close to me. That's what made him, come and trust me. Um, when he started telling me the stories of his mom, and he started sharing that, because he didn't do that for several years while I was going back. He was just the kid who wanted to be the boss of the tripod. And that was Muhammad. The tripod is mine and nobody touch it. That was Muhammad. And slowly I started to realize that when all the other kids would go away, come 6 p.m., he would stay around for a long time, and I would have to tell him, hey, you have to go. Your parents are going to be worried. And until one day he told me, like, no, there's nobody home. And told me about his mom. And of course, he is literally 2 years older than my own daughter. So, of course, you start understanding how very young kids are being forced to make very tough decisions at this age, survival, decisions at this age. And so, yeah, like I was very, very moved, by him, by the fact that, of course, I've heard every single story, because, like family members tell me how so-and-so, just disappeared through Jijiga. They haven't heard from him in like 3 months, or, these stories you hear all the time. But then I recognized, there was right in front of me, right? It was Muhammad. So, yeah, when it comes to children, and then there's a certain indignation, that comes with that, that our youth have to be put in this situation, with so much potential, So these things were something that I considered, very deeply. For me, they moved me very deeply. And these are exactly the kids that end up in the Mediterranean, right? Or end up, with organ traffickers, through the Saudi and Yemen borders. Those are realities, right? And I was very moved that all of those realities were finding a manifestation and expression in Muhammad, in who he was. Because to me, he is such an innocent and beautiful kid that was going through so much confusion, and so many questions in his mind, that day when he was asking Ibrahim, like how he was asking everyone, by the way, he was asking everyone, so how do you get out of here? Like what is he's trying to, make a mental image of what awaits, and how can I do it? How can I do it? So, and this happened with many other people that he was asking. I only happened to include the one, with Ibrahim, but he had asked many others, including, kids his age, or, they're like on a phone call with someone in Switzerland that kind of made it, and then when they make it and they start sending a tiny little money, of course you start like, okay, I can do that for my family too. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for your beautiful talk. I want to, ask another question. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you for your beautiful talk. What I wanted to ask is, I want to take this back to your camera work and your attitude towards camera. And what you were mentioning about, the burden of carrying this stupid heavy camera with me, for years, not knowing, what I'm doing with it, reminds me of what people like, I don't know, Stan Brakhage or Jonas Mekas were doing. They were also like carrying 60mm, 8mm cameras with themselves everywhere. And for instance, in the case of Mekas, he would like return to this footage that is recorded like years later, trying to make sense of it. Um, and also you talked about, being receptive, letting the world in, which is also, I think, similar in ways to what, those experimental filmmakers were doing. But what I'm curious about is that Brakhage has this essay that was very formative and influential to me, titled "In Defense of Amateur." And in that essay, he's mentioning, just like you did, that he hates being, gimmicky. So he doesn't want to show off with, techniques and all that. And he only does so when it's required. And he mentions some examples about two of his films that are films recording moments of his children being born. And he writes that his eye is seeing this pinkish hue on the skin of his newly born children, but the camera is not recording that. The camera fails to record that. So that is when he steps in, and because he was doing a lot of hand painting on film, that's when he steps in and incorporates some technique to materialize what the camera failed to do so. So my question is that have you encountered moments that, even though you've been receptive to the world and try to let the world in, the camera fails to do so? And if you've encountered some of those experiences, but what was your attitude towards it? Were you like, okay, this is enough? Like, if the camera couldn't perceive it, materialize it, I'm not gonna do anything to remedy it? Or did you take measures to materialize something that your eye saw but the camera didn't?
Wow, that's an amazing question. To me, the making a film, or the shooting, the cinematography, it's a series of problem solving. Yeah, from the beginning to the end. There's all kinds of problems, or kinds of challenges. The moment you decide to make a film, or the moment, or when you're shooting, right? It's all logistics. Like when you thought you were going to be shooting this landscape, I don't know what, like, well, it's going to, you're not going to get the clouds, or you don't have the, there are so many things that are out of your control. And so the attitude for me, as an amateur, because I consider myself 100% an amateur, I'm never a professional or anything like that. What moves me to make this is the love that I have for it, is the passion that I have for it, is the healing nature of the process that I adore. Yeah. So being it, problem solving, I was never like trying to give up on something. I'm at the same time not that crazy and thinking, oh well, right now I want some kind of miracle falling down the sky, or you know what I mean? It was never like that. It's never for me beyond this nature, this the presence of things, and I don't feel like I was asking beyond that. But what did resonate to me was in terms of let's just say trying to get a certain shot in a certain way, would be the slow motions, you know. Those were a challenge, you know, for me, especially at nighttime. You know, the wattages are completely off, but the beauty is that a lot of those mistakes, you know, I was embracing because it was giving me all this flickery stuff that I don't have like any money for visual effects or anything like that. And if this is how it's going to come, this is how it's going to come. Right. So yeah, I did my own, I put up my own fight when it comes to, you know, small creative solutions. Yeah. That I could bring to, you know, to the cinematography. But no, and but I understand what you're saying. You know, when he went ahead and he decided, okay, I'm going to bring the pink, and that is problem solving. It's like, yeah, this is how I'm seeing it, and it's not there. Well, God damn it, I'm going to put it on. You know, it's fantastic, and I think that it's a wonderful, you know, attitude to have. To and by the way, I embrace the problems that come, because I realize that those are the ones have taught me anything. And the thing is, once you start solving those problems, it's kind of like it becomes your arsenal, right? That no one can take away from you, because that becomes who you are as a cinematographer. The way that you find the solutions that work for you. I could try to imitate, you know, all kinds of solutions that are out there for I don't know who. The tiny, very simple solution that I found for myself is what's going to work for me, you know, such as the stabilizer, you know, or the fact that, hey, you know what, at the beginning I had more of a little bit of a heavier gear, meaning like I had full of focus, you know, I was just doing that type of work. But then after a while, it's like I had to throw the towel. It's like, oh, get away from me, because I realized that the heavier it is, the less my body can take. So you know what, I'm gonna do the focusing by hand, you know, that it has to be that way, because the fall focus has to go, or the eyepiece has to go, and all of it. And I started stripping. So by the end, it was just me, the camera, and the stabilizer, and that's it. And that became like the second nature that I didn't have to think about. I simplify. And simplifying for me was, it's like when you unclutter your closet. It felt very much that way, you know, where I could see, and I didn't have to think about this any longer. I didn't have to use any of those beautiful technologies or this or that, and necessary ones. I was going to wing it this way. And that's how it was going to work for me. It was going to be a solution for me that would give me the ability to engage more freely and more directly, and be out of my way. Yeah. So is that solution viable for anybody else? I don't know. Don't think so. Or, you know, who the hell knows? But that's what worked for me. And so, you know, I'm sure if I ever work with a cinematographer, like a real cinematographer, they'd be like, what the world, you know, what is she doing? You know, I'm sure I did have the opportunity to work with a DP, and it was just fascinating, because a lot of the things that, because I was working alone, I was never having to communicate about cinematography, you know, So, but then came the time where now you have to communicate, and now you have to delegate, and now you have to allow, so that was an interesting and beautiful process. I feel like I look forward to working with cinematographers, because there's also something else that somebody else's way of seeing, and that in itself for me, it's like an awe, like, oh wow, this is how they see, and it's just completely different, from what I'm seeing or what I'm perceiving. But this is like, yeah, I find it, very beautiful to engage that way with other cinematographers. But yeah, I mean, the way I'm doing things are very unorthodox. Why? Because those are the solutions where I'm in the middle of the nowhere. I ain't got no, battery chargers or anything like that, or generators or any of that stuff. I'm gonna work with what I have, and those limitations inform the solutions that I was finding that were very that were perfect for me. Why? Because they allowed me to do my job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your film. I had seen this twice before. Actually, I encountered it at a really intense time. My mother-in-law was dying, and I was like, we were only able to watch cinema that was like about. We tried to watch them like rom-com, and we're like, I can't engage with things that feel like a distraction or trivial, because there isn't peace in that. But so I saw your film at that time, and it was just really powerful. And we watched it again the next night right away. So that's just amazing to be here with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask some really trashy questions and boring ones now. So I was wondering, like, when you go out to shoot for the day, like, what do you pack with you in your bag? And I was wondering, like, for Hayati, if you brought a light to shoot those hyenas. It's like so beautiful how dark the background is and how bright the hyena is. I'm just like so amazed with the shadow and light in your film. And another question is about like what lenses you like to film human faces and what lenses you like to film landscapes with. I have many more, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, then you remind me of the questions because I already forgot them. But I'll start with well, I want to say thank you for sharing your story, and for me personally, cinema has been sort of like a place of healing. I never really was attracted or by entertainment per se. I know, or I'm not looking at cinema as an entertainment. I'm looking at cinema as a place where I engage with myself, and if a film allows me that place, that's where I'm gravitated towards. Tarkovsky talks about cinema as a prayer, and that's always very moved me very much so, because it's almost like walking into a temple or whatever it is, and allowing you to have a conversation with yourself, allowing that quietness. Or when Kiarostami says, I love people or Apichat Pong says, they can come and sleep in my movies, or when they create cinema hotels, where you can just go and sleep while you're watching the movie. That's doing something in the unconscious, obviously. So, but yeah,
Just like sleeping in the presence of another person, like sleeping in the presence of a film.
Exactly. If you can sleep in the presence of another, it's because I'm trusting you that you're not gonna like kill me in the middle of it or something like that, right? There's a certain trust involved in that. So to me, it's never, I'm not questioning myself, oh, is this like entertaining or is it boring? Like, it's none of my business. I don't care about that, right? I'm having other type of conversations, or other type of considerations when I'm making a film. So yeah, that was something about what you.
Absolutely. And yeah, the other one, just to remind you, was about like what you pack with you when you're going out to film on these days.
Yeah. So as I was saying, it started very proper. Like, I try to be professional, but it just doesn't work. At the end, what I have was is my camera. I have a 50 Zeiss 1.4. It's my fastest lens. It allows me, and it's very small one. It's not heavy. Again, a lot of considerations had to be put into what my body can take and not. How long can I do this? Yeah, so that was a consideration. But most importantly, I mean, I love to and my tripod. Um, I think that there's nothing more beautiful than having a tripod. Just the shooting with a tripod is the most amazing thing, especially if you're thinking about um, what you're shooting as that gift, and and allowing the camera to receive it. My tripod, always. What else of my sound, my sound equipment, my lens, I have a zoom lens, that also works. I know, people are very about like, oh, got to do the primes, and I do have, I have the 50, I have the 35, I have an 85 prime as well, but I seldom use them. Very few times, but when I use them, they make sense. Cleaners for my lenses. But yeah, so, very simple, just, very simple. And of course, shade. Yeah. And that's it. It's just something very simple. I think somebody asked me to make a list. I think for ideate.org or something like that. And I think it's online. I just kind of like put it, made a list. That was a longer list. It's not like the true at the end of the day list. You know what I mean? The true list is like, oh no, we're cutting everything out, because at the end of the day, I'm not using any of that stuff. I'm just going to the truly the necessary, so that I can carry more and walk farther.
Did you bring snacks?
Yeah. Yes, we did bring snacks,
And do you bring a light with you sometimes to shoot at night, or never?
No. For this one, for example, what we did is we had a tuk-tuk, one of those carts, come over. I'm like, oh, can you just stand there and illuminate, because we're in the middle of nowhere. So like, yeah, you got to find your solutions. The guy came, parked in the middle. He's like, am I okay there? Perfect. So that's it. And he's like, let's do this.
That's amazing. I love that story. And do you, when you were like teaching yourself, or during your learning process, like what did that look like for you? How were you, like, yeah, what did teaching yourself look like in the cinematography?
Okay, so some books, a lot online. I was, first of all, I needed to get into the gadgets, right? I need to become that gadget freak, that knows about the tiniest little, I don't know what, because you got to know. And also because I'm taking this equipment to Hairat, where you don't have like these kind of shops, if something happens. So I I had to be taking like contingency, have my contingency plans. If this one doesn't work, then I'm gonna hop on this, or that type of thing. And but at the beginning, I was shooting with a DSLR, with a 5D Mark II. So whatever classes online I found, okay, so this is how you do. You open the thing, and the manual, and and reading the manuals. Half the time I didn't understand what the hell it was talking about, but then just you just turn the camera on and you just hope for the best. It's like, okay, and then tinkering with it, and realizing, oh, this is what this one does. Okay, I see. Just taking note, for yourself. And what I was doing? I was going a lot to the park, to Prospect Park in New York. That's, it's something that's very close to me, and that was my education, for cinematography, because first I was shooting this short film. Maybe we should show it. He Who Dances on Wood. I was shooting that film, but most importantly, how was I going to practice? I wasn't feeling like I'm going to ask my friend. I had to be alone. It had to be a process that I did on myself, and so the best scenario for me was going to the park, because for me that's where I learned to really be quiet and listen. The movement of all of these different kinds of vegetations, or even the presence of all of these trees, the shadows from above, the shadows on the floor, just all of the shadow. The it's like light works when you go there at like around 4 and the sun is coming on the side. It's light works, and you see the water, and my gosh, there's just so much going on. So I started shooting that. I was just shooting that. And to me, when I came back home with the shot of like the slide on the, I don't know, with some shadows, I'll be the happiest person, or just the water, or just any of these elements. To me, they were speaking to me so much. So when I was going and shooting in the farms, those places were not like alien to me. I was already in conversation. I was already very quickly becoming in sync, with the place, and being able to see and trust and respond, and have what do you say? Really obey my neurological impulses. Why this, that, I don't care, but that's how I'm feeling, and this is what it's wanting to do, and it wants to shoot this stream for the next 30 minutes. God, but who am I to, that's what's moving me at the moment. I'm gonna understand later. I mean, I don't know, but that's where I want to be. And so yeah, I can sit down and criticize myself 247. But why am I doing that? Trusting that there's always something, a reason why. And most importantly, looking at it as an opportunity to get to know my own subconscious and what it's asking for. Right? I forgot the other question.
I think that was it. Thank
That
you
was
so
it?
much.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah, just hold it in front of you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for a gorgeous presentation. I was so moved last night when I saw your film. All I could do was eat when I got home. I was like, what was that? It was just mind blowing. So thank you. And then this morning to see Hairat, is that what it's called? I was weeping by the time it finished. I'm suppressing it. The the eyes of the hyenas and the interaction with this man, and the poem. I melted. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on what you said about liberation. And one of the things that I found striking about the chat is that how you showed the relationship that the people have with that. To me, and I'm very drawn to silence in cinema and silence, and I talk about it, I write about it a lot. But it seems to me like the chat was this silent character in the production that the people interacted with, and that it had this sort of passive movement toward liberation, and how with each activity that integrated the story around that, the silence was known, you know. And I was just so moved by that. It was gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was, you know, and I asked myself when I left, when I'm driving home, I said, what does that chat mean to me? And like you said earlier, I agree with you totally that there is this grander narrative with that all over the world, with the way that communities are harboring their healing, or the way that communities are surviving their healing process with something that medicates, right? So I loved that. I really had this conversation with Chat when I was driving home last night. Like, what, you know, your role, Chat, your role, and how the people remain, you know, how time becomes a domain, and that it's just very, very captivating to me. And the one thing that has moved me really more than anything and everything that I've said is that I am very interested in the imperialist impact to divination practices and cultures of all over the, you know, I have about 5 cultures I'm looking at right now in my writing. But when the smoke came, I thought that was a divination going on. I thought, oh, there's a divination here, right? And then there's the script about the fear coming into this human being's mind presence, and the prayer, and the smoke, and the way that what you said, that call and response, how that call and response conjured the smoke. That's how I took that in. That's how I interpreted that. And it was part of the chat and part of this silent character, you know, throughout your production. I learned a lot watching that happen in your film. And I don't know if that was on purpose, if that was edited in, you know, this dialogue and the smoke coming up, you know, at the same time. Here you have the voice of the person who's narrating about the fear and the prayer, and you see this smoke and this swirl in there at one point, like a portal into wherever we're going to go, you know. Was that deliberate?
Wow. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for all your insights. You know, as I was saying before, the process, or where the process was taking me again, is into that place where I could just be, you know, I could just receive, you know, what is happening in front of me, and to be present, hopefully to be present enough in order to see and to allow it in, right? And to recognize it, to acknowledge it. So that was the place where my Sophia Mom friends hang out. That was the hangout place. So we went there. Usually I'm there during the day. I'm not usually there at night, you know. So, but that day we decided to, because it was that day that when I was shooting them and different rituals that they're having, so we just stayed, through the night. And then at nighttime, I don't know, I was shooting one of them, and then all of a sudden I turn around and I realized, but at this door, and I realized the smoke. So all I had to do, I was just like, wow. And I brought the camera and I opened it and I hit record, and that's it. And all of these things started swirling and this and that and all of that, And to me, I couldn't invent that. I couldn't, think, oh, this is what the smoke is going to do. It was just simply that, I took a moment to see and to acknowledge it and to just record it. And I have, I think, about 30 minutes of that, like a whole 30 minutes. Like I said, I could be, watching a river for 30 minutes. I have 30 minutes of that. To me, it was just something, very beautiful, because while, the imams are sitting here, they're chewing their chat. Their, chat is not just, again, it's a ceremony. It's a social ceremony. It's not that you just go there and like, go to the closet and sniff something. No, this is something where you have to open all your senses in order to receive, So that's why you're having all the frankincense. That's why you're preparing, all of the auditory, and people are just in company with each other. Muhammad once told me, he said, these people are like mirrors to each other. He told me, do you know that in our houses, we don't have mirrors? And I said, well, I'm like, you know what? I didn't even notice that. That's true. He said, yeah, because when people are sitting with each other, they act as mirrors to one another, And I really, really love that. And that's something that I saw, happening. But you are acknowledging each other's presence, even in silence or in prayer, or, yeah. So no, none of these things are done on purpose. I'm not, creating these shots. I'm just noticing them and just recording them.
But you do have a feel for the moment, the timing. It's like, this is the time to not do that, or to do this. You do have this very lovely way that you finesse the moment, is what I would call it. That I'm noticing.
I think it really, everything, again, I want to say it again, it really has to do with wanting to be free in order to react to these to your own impulses that are coming from somewhere that are very true, that are telling you something, and that you're not in a rush, or you don't have any agenda rather than the now. This is what's important. Because the thing is, if you are having a certain agenda, you can miss the now because you want to get, I don't know where, and you're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
Or you're trying so hard to get to a certain place, or to shoot, something or an idea that perhaps doesn't even work, perhaps doesn't, it's not even better than what you're being offered at the specific moment. But I think that it's just to be present and to recognize those moments, Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Speaking of agendas and being in a rush, Jessica Beshir, thank you so much for sharing your work with us. Thank you so much for your presence here with us, for your generosity, for your openness, for your receptivity. It has been really wonderful to have you here in this conversation today, and I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else has as well.
Thank you,
And
thank
last
you, thank
words.
you for inviting me to be here. It truly is it's such a privilege to be sharing this space with you guys, and especially knowing that all of everyone present, you know, we're artists, you know, we're working towards, I don't know, but to be sharing the space with you, it's really wonderful. So it's enriched me a lot. So thank you for your questions. Thank you for coming today. And thank you for inviting me to the Mimesis Film Festival.
Thank you so much, Jessica.